Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu, okay.
So, yes, we were discussing that last time we completed chapter 4, and today we will be starting chapter 5 from Bhagavad Gita. And before that, I just want to remind you that on 5th of April, that is next Wednesday, we will be having our closed book exam. And as I discussed before, this exam will be multiple choice questions. It will be online. You will get a link and you have to click on the link. It is better to do through laptop or computer, which is easier. But if you can't, then you can use from phone also. So you will get a link on which you have to click. There will be a question and 4 options. So you have to select the right option. There will also be some fill-ups, like some sentences with a blank, and you have to fill in with a couple of words or a few words appropriate for answering that question. So I shared on the group, this is the syllabus for closed book exam, and each chapter has a set of questions. So first step in preparation for the exam is you have to find out answers for these questions. So if you see, against each question, there is one verse number. Like question number 10, list the 6 kinds of aggressors. So there is a verse number 1.36, Bhagavad Gita 1.36. If you open that verse, then you will get answer to this question. Like that, each chapter has question bank, and total they have 63 questions. That we have 6 chapters. So on an average, 10 questions per chapter you can consider. Total 63 questions for 6 chapters. And then there are some analogies. One thing about Srila Prabhupada's purport is even analogies Prabhupada took from the scriptures. He may have given them new name, like in scriptures, there is analogy of chariot and chariot driver for comparing body and soul. So Prabhupada gave the same analogy from scriptures, but he replaced chariot with car and driver. So it becomes more easy to understand. But these analogies themselves are very, very important to understand the subject matter nicely. So we need to remember these analogies. These are 2 pages of analogies, 3 pages actually, and that's it. So this makes the syllabus for our first CBA exam, closed book exam. So I request all devotees to kindly work from now only, so that there will not be any panic at the last moment. You can borrow questions from others, but best thing is to find out your own answers, because you never know the other person has found the right answer or not. So if you remember the wrong answer, then even if you study the whole thing, then you may not get that nice marks. So depend on yourself. The Bhagavad Gita is there, the references are given. You can simply find out the answers and remember them nicely, and the paper will be easy in terms of multiple choice questions and fill-ups. There will not be long questions to write a page or something like that, nothing, just few words. So I wish you all the best. Now let us start with chapter number 5. This chapter is again very important chapter in terms of the living entity who is attached to work. As we know, generally living entities are of 3 types, as per Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur. The topmost living entities are Bhakti Adhikari. Bhakti Adhikari means those who can render pure devotional service. They have no ulterior motives. Lower than them are Gyan Adhikari. Gyan Adhikari means those who want to renounce the world, those who wants to get rid of the clutches of the material world, those who want to get liberation, they are called Jnana Adhikari. And the lowest are Karma Adhikari. Karma Adhikari means those who are very attached to their own work. Krishna has given us certain type of body, and we all are attached to our body. We are attached to our skills, we are attached to our work, we are attached to our family, we are attached to the set of situations we are put in. So, being attached to those set of situations, we work. But to work for Krishna is an art. Utilizing same work for being Krishna conscious, that same work becomes the method to become free from the clutches of material world. Just like in Mauritius, when we went last time and we went to take bath in the ocean, there was this sea urchin and they got pricked in the leg. So then the way to remove it is you put another needle to take it out. So in India also it's very common, if you get a thorn prick, to take out the thorn, you have to put another needle or another thorn. That's how you take it out. In the same way, karma is binding. The karmic reactions are binding the soul. But if same karma, if utilized in serving Krishna, if same karma is used to become Krishna conscious, the same karma can be the path to liberation. Therefore, the previous chapter, Krishna spoke in detail about transcendental knowledge. If somebody has knowledge, he can distinguish which karma binds, which karma liberates. This is the purpose of knowledge. By knowledge, we distinguish what is good, what is bad. This is knowledge. If you see children, small children, anybody who can give them chocolate, they will go with them. They don't have the discretion who is good, who is bad. But when we grow up, we have distinction. Okay, this person is showing me undue favors. Maybe something is wrong. We have that discretion. So Krishna has given the knowledge to Arjun, and he comes to the point that Arjun, you have to renounce karma. Now, when Krishna spoke to renounce karma, Arjun thought that I should give up my duties, which Krishna was condemning so far. But in 441, if you see, 4th chapter, 41 verse, Krishna is again telling Arjun, give up karma. And then in 442, which is the last verse, the next verse, Krishna is telling, you fight. So 41st verse, Krishna is telling, give up karma. And 42nd verse, Krishna is telling, you fight. Arjuna found it impossible to perform both. How to perform both? To give up karma and to work with detachment simultaneously. So Arjun came back to the same situation of 3rd chapter. You remember the beginning of 3rd chapter? Arjuna was confused in the similar fashion. He was thinking that Krishna is actually telling him to give up karma, to give up duty. And Krishna told so many things in 3rd chapter and 4th chapter, but again, by these last two verses, 41 and 42, again Arjuna became confused. He thought this is again a contradiction. How I have to renounce the work and still fight? Therefore, Prabhupada in translation wrote, renouncing the results of the karma. Prabhupada didn't tell the karma. Prabhupada wrote, renouncing the results of the karma. But anyway, Arjuna was not having purports of Srila Prabhupada, so Arjuna became confused. And Arjuna thought that Krishna is again telling me to give up the karma itself. Therefore, Krishna is clarifying that particular query of Arjun in this chapter. Let us start with a quotation of Srila Prabhupada. Anupama Mataji, would you like to read?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat.
No.
In the previous chapters, as a prelude to the Bhagavad Gita, many different paths were explained. This was all presented unsystematically. A more organized outline of the path would be necessary for action and understanding. In other words, by his questions, he is clearing the path of Krishna consciousness for all students who seriously want to understand the mystery of the Bhagavad Gita. 3.2 Purpose.
So sometimes we may think that why Arjuna is repeating the same question which he already asked in third chapter. But actually he is asking it again so that there should not be an iota of doubt. There should not be a shadow of doubt about what Krishna wants to deliver. Therefore, there is a proper connection between all these chapters. See, in second chapter, Krishna gave a lot of things. Krishna told about Nishkam Karma, how to realize our own identity as soul, and the philosophy of Sankhya, and then going to liberation. So the preliminary knowledge of soul and its entanglement with material body and how to get rid of that entanglement, all this Krishna has already explained in the second chapter. Then in third chapter, Krishna explains that a person on platform of knowledge no longer has any duties to perform. He just do these duties for my pleasure. Then Krishna tells in fourth chapter how these particular action which is done for my pleasure is actually called sacrifice. And then Krishna tells different kinds of sacrifices which we already studied in the previous chapter. Krishna also tells that how one has to see action in inaction and inaction in action. We also studied that previously. Then Krishna told how one can get that knowledge by approaching a bona fide spiritual master, and he can only give this knowledge to us. So all this has been discussed in fourth chapter. Now the problem comes in the end part of this chapter, fourth chapter, where Krishna tells in 41st verse to give up karma, whereas in 42nd verse Krishna tells that Arjun, you need to fight. Therefore, this chapter 5 opens with Arjuna's question, which is very, very similar to his question in the third chapter. His basic question is, which is better? Work is better or renunciation of work is better? Now Krishna will answer Arjun's question and will explain the process of achieving liberation through karma. And that process called as karma yoga. So in depth, Krishna is going to explain about karma yoga. Prabhupada gave the name action in Krishna consciousness. That when person is in perfect Krishna consciousness, how he does his duties, how he acts, all this is discussed in chapter number 5, which is also called as Jnana Yoga, but Karma Sannyas Yoga. So anyway, let's start with Arjuna's question. Sachidananda Prabhu, would you like to read? Please read the verse and translation.
Oh, Prabhuji,
Hare Krishna.
should I read the translation only, Prabhuji, or the verse also?
Yeah, please read both.
Okay. Arjuna Uvacha. Sanyasam karmanam Krishna punaryugam sa samsasi yakshreya itayor ekam tanme bruhi sunishitam. Arjuna said, O Krishna, first of all, you ask me to renounce work, and then again you recommend work with devotion. Now, will you kindly tell me definitely which of the two is more beneficial?
Yeah. So now Arjuna is confused. Sincere student will ask questions to get the subject clear in his understanding. Arjuna understood the meaning of the word karma differently in the previous chapter. So naturally this question will come, and Arjuna thought that if I have to give up karma, then why Krishna is again and again telling me to do my duty? So he asked this question again. So this is actually symptom of a sincere student. In class also you can see students who ask questions, they are sign of intelligence. Prabhupada used to say good questions are the sign of intelligence. And Prabhupada already told in last chapter what is the process to ask. And on the part of teacher also tests sometimes. Teacher may tell something which will be little instigating students' intelligence. They may tell sometimes some things, like when we used to study science, some teacher used to tell some wrong formula. Then when students used to ask, no sir, this is not right. Then he said, yes, I was testing. Are you sleeping or you're awake? So sometimes teacher may also do like that. Teacher may also test the student, So like that, Arjuna was a good student and he asked the question perfectly, because in 5th chapter, Lord has to explain how Karma Yoga is even superior to Gyan. This is very important subject. Even then mere giving up the duties or even mere understanding of liberation is lower than Karma Yoga. Yoga means to unite, to connect. So when our karma, our duties are connected to Krishna, that state is even more higher. Therefore, this question is very relevant. Now Krishna starts with the explanation of how Karma Yoga is better than renunciation. Usha Mataji, would you like to read the translation of second verse? Please read from Bhagavad Gita.
Yes, Hare Krishna Prabhu. The personality of Godhead replied, the renunciation of work and work is devotion are both good for liberation. But of the two, work is devotional service is better than renunciation of work.
Very clear answer. Both are equal, Karma Sannyas and Karma Yoga. We will see how they are equal. We will see it eventually. But Krishna is telling if you have to choose one, then Karma Yoga is better. Then action and Krishna consciousness is better. Because generally, when fruitive activities, they are directed towards sense gratification. The fruitive activities cause material bondage. We know that. When activities are aimed to improving bodily comforts, to get more and more sense gratification, then that kind of activities are condemned in the scriptures. Everywhere, karma is condemned, because when karma is directed for the sense gratification, then that karma is not beneficial. Therefore, the second level comes of jnana, where person thinks that I am a spirit soul, I need to escape from the material bondage. How long I live in this world? So better I should get rid of my responsibilities and just focus on liberation. So that is the process of renunciation. But there is something above that, Karma Yoga. Action in Krishna consciousness is greater than renunciation. How is that? Because we discussed in the previous chapter also, mere renunciation of fruitive activities, but our heart is around the sense gratification, our mind is hovering around the sense objects, then that is not real detachment. That is, Krishna called the world, who remember, one who is externally showing off the renunciation, but internally he is attached.
Pretender.
Huh?
Pretender.
Pretender, mithyachari sa uchyate. Krishna is telling he is a pretender, and Krishna never likes pretender. So as long as heart is not purified, one has to work. But how one has to work? In Krishna consciousness. When one works in Krishna consciousness, automatically one escapes the result of the fruitive action. And therefore he is liberated even while living in this body. See, Gyanis will get liberation after they die. But devotees, they renunciate even while living in this world because they are not attached to the karmic reactions. Therefore, even renunciation without Krishna consciousness is incomplete. Even if somebody is a big renunciate, he doesn't eat, he doesn't talk, he is very renounced externally. But if he is not having Krishna consciousness, he is still attached to the process of renunciation. That is another attachment. So, if Krishna wants us to live in a palace, we should not be attached to a tree. And if Krishna wants us to live under a tree, we should not be attached to the palace. That is real renunciation. So when person is eager to achieve liberation, and if he renounce things related to the Supreme Lord only, thinking them to material, that renunciation is called Falgu Vairagya. You can remember this. Falgu Vairagya. Falgu Vairagya means is external renunciation, is incomplete renunciation. He renounces even the Supreme Lord. He renounces the things related to the Supreme Lord. Like for example, a spiritualist is advised not to eat good foodstuffs. Because if you eat opulent food, then you tend to get more material desires. But when the same food is prasad, when it comes as prasad, and if we take it in a proper consciousness, then that is not an ordinary food. That food will purify our existence. But if somebody disregards prasad, that no, it's too opulent, let me eat something simple, that is again Falgu Vairagya. It's incomplete renunciation. But complete renunciation is Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhi. Whatever we can engage in service of Krishna, that thing is a devotee uses. If by taking nice prasad he can serve better, he will take nice prasad. If by fasting he can serve better, he will fast. If by living in a nice house he can serve better, he will live in a nice house. If living on a street serves better, that he will live under a street. So like that, renunciation with Krishna consciousness is complete renunciation, where person has a perfect knowledge that everything belongs to Krishna. So what will I renunciate? What I will renounce? If I have something of my own, I will renounce. But everything belongs to Krishna. How can I renounce? Like one time, one person, he went to Guru and he told that, Guru Maharaj, I want to serve you very nicely. He said, okay, you can do service. Then what he did, he opened donation box of Guru only. In ashram, he opened donation box of Guru and he took money from there and he went to market and purchased lot of vegetables, paneer and lot of things. And then he came back and offered a nice feast to Guru. And Guru asked, how did you get so much money to arrange such a big feast? He said, Guru Maharaj, I took from your own donation box. Don't worry, it's your money only. Is that service? It is not service. If we are thinking that we are renouncing this world, that means we think that we own something, then only we can renounce. If everything belongs to Krishna, it should be his will, what he wants to do with that. So if our body belongs to Krishna, let us find out what Krishna wants us to do. If mind belongs to Krishna, let us find out what Krishna wants us to do with our mind. So knowledge that everything belongs to Krishna is real renunciation, where devotee does not claim that I have this property or I have this belonging. Everything is Krishna's property. And that is the perfect form of action. That is Krishna consciousness. So Krishna told very, very clearly that Karma Yoga is better than Karma Sannyas. Now, in next few verses, Krishna will explain why. So Krishna is telling how this Karma Yogi who is engaged in Karma Yoga is a Nitya Sannyasi. Nitya sannyasi. Somebody can be sannyasi for a time being. Like when you go to crematorium, how you feel? So those that went to crematorium and they saw a dead body, how they burn it, how we feel? That we will not do any sinful activity again, and I'll never tell lie in my life, and now I'll chant my rounds very sincerely, and I'll read Bhagavatam every day. But when you come back, what happens? You forget everything. So there are sannyasi. We also get sannyas feeling. We also feel renunciate, but not nitya sannyasi. This word nitya sannyasi is important. One who is constant sannyasi, constantly renunciate. That means a true sannyasi. Who is a true sannyasi? Yona dveshti na kankshati. One who does not hates. Dveshti means dvesha. Dvesha means to hate. He doesn't have any animosity. Na kankshati. Kankshati means to have desire, to attain something. He doesn't hate something. He doesn't get attached to anything. Nirdvando. Dvanda means duality. Nirdvando means he's free from dualities. Such a person can easily overcome all bondage of material world. That is real karma yogi. Abhimanyu Sutta Prabhu, can you read translation for third verse of 5th chapter? Please unmute.
Who neither hates nor desires the fruits of his activities is known to be always renounced. Such a person, free from all dualities, easily overcomes material bondage and is completely liberated. Almighty Arjuna.
So Krishna is telling Arjuna very clearly that you have to be a true sannyasi, not a pretender. And if you do that, then what are the symptoms? You can't hate anything, neither you can become attached to anything. That is the definition of true sannyasi. One should understand factually that nothing belongs to anyone. Then where is the question of renunciation? One who works in devotion is a true sannyasi. And he easily achieves liberation, because for a devotee, liberation is not a goal, it's just a means. Therefore, if we see examples in Srimad Bhagavatam or other literature, there's so many examples of devotees who did their duties perfectly in whatever situation they were in. Like we in 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, we see example of Rishabdev, Lord Rishabdev. Lord Rishabdev was an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he was the emperor of the whole world. So while he was the emperor of the whole world, he did his duty nicely as a Kshatriya. Then Lord Rishabdev had 100 sons. So as a father, his responsibility was to train his sons. So he did that duty also perfectly. Like Rishabdev personally instructed his 100 sons on how to practice austerities, how to learn politics, how to rule over the world. All type of knowledge Lord Rishabdev gave. So this way he was a perfect father also. And then when time came, he became vanaprasthi and he left home. He was a perfect sannyasi. He was a perfect renunciate. When he went in the forest, he was just roaming around without clothes, without food, without any attachment. So that kind of renunciation also he displayed. So when somebody is a karma yogi, in every situation he is perfect. He is not attached to not doing his duty. He is not attached to doing his duty. Like if Krishna has placed him like a king, he was the best king. If Krishna made him father, he was the best father. And if Krishna made him a sannyasi, he was the best sannyasi. Therefore, you might remember, we have discussed this before also a couple of times. Bhaktivinoda Thakur tells in this context that there are 3 kinds of devotees. One is Swanishtita, Swanishta Bhaktas, those who are attached to sense gratification. Second kind of devotees are Parinishtita, those who want to get liberated from the material clutches. But best devotees are Nirapeksha. They don't have any expectation. If Krishna puts them in any situation, they will just act accordingly. So therefore, this particular karma yogi is very, very important, because we are all in different situations. Some of us may be householders, some may brahmachari, or some may vanaprasthis, somebody may become sannyas, or we may have different professions, like some are teachers, some are pujaris, some are working in IT, some are working in companies, some may be working in household. But all of us can become pure devotee. That is a good news. According to this verse, everybody can become pure devotee irrespective of their external situation, if they just learn this concept of karma yoga. Let us read further. Chetan Prabhu, can you read translations 4 and 5?
Hare Krishna. Only the ignorant speak of devotional service, karma yoga, as being different from the analytical study of the material world, Sankhya. Those who are actually learned say that he who applies himself well to one of these paths achieves the results of both. One who knows that the position reached by means of analytical study can also be attained by devotional service, and who therefore sees analytical study and devotional service to be on the same level, says things as they are.
So please understand this now with proper attention. This is an important concept. Krishna is telling that karma yoga, which is devotional service, and sannyas, karma sannyas, or jnana yoga, or we also call sankhya yoga, they both are same. Why they are same? Because they both have same goal. That common aim is to attain shelter of Lord Vishnu. That is the common aim. Prabhupada gives a simple example. Prabhupada tells that this Sankhya Yoga or Sannyas, Karma Sannyas or Jnana Yoga, or in simple terms, renunciation, this renunciation is dependent on analysis of material world, which is called Sankhya Yoga. And it is compared to if you are looking towards a big, big tree and you want to find the root of the tree, where the tree is originating. That analysis, that search for the root of the tree is called karma sannyas or sankhya or renunciation, where person analyze. And no, this is not the source of this material world. This is not my source. Oh, this is not my source. So he completely do this analysis and comes to the root of the tree. Who is the root of the tree? Lord Krishna. So when he comes to that process, when he comes to that level, Vasudevam Sarvamiti, Bahunanam Janmanavante, Gyanvan Prabhadyate, Vasudevam Sarvamiti, Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha. But this situation is very, very, very rare. Because in this analysis, many of the people get stuck. Some get stuck in demigod worship. Some get stuck in the impersonal Brahman. Some get stuck in yogic siddhis. They become very powerful. But very, very rare souls, after millions of lives of endeavor, they come to the understanding that Vasudevam Sarvamiti, that the root of the tree is Krishna. And then, naturally, when they understand this, the root of tree is Krishna, they want to serve Krishna, and they come to the level of devotional service. So that way, even sannyas, karma sannyas, brings to the level of devotional service. But there is another way, which is direct devotional service, karma yoga, which teaches in the beginning only that you water the root. Why you need a big analysis that how tree works? You just water the root and the whole tree will get nourishment. So devotees don't go into that analysis. They directly serve Krishna, and that is devotional service. So ultimately, this karma sannyas should also come to the level of serving Krishna. Whereas devotees, they directly serve Krishna. So the aim of both the processes is same. Therefore, Krishna told that the both processes are same. But if you look towards the endeavor part, the amount of trouble involved in the first process is too much. Therefore, Krishna says Karma Yoga is better because it's easier way to attain the shelter of Krishna. So, real Sankhya person, real renunciate will find the root and then will water the root. So, there should be no difference between analytical study of the material world and also the Karma Yoga where person serves Krishna in perfect knowledge. So, that way there is no difference. And this understanding, if somebody gets, then he will not be after Falgu Vairagya, which is incomplete renunciation. Krishna is telling in the next verse, 6th verse, that such renunciation where person does not come to the level of Karma Yoga is very, very difficult and distressful. Because you imagine, you are the analysis of the material world. Just doing analysis of your body is so technical. Like, I'm sure all of you, when you studied, you must have studied about the structure of cell in the body. Have you studied the structure of cell in the body? Is more complicated than a big city like Delhi or Mumbai. Is more complicated than that. So just to analyze a cell in our body is so difficult. Forget about analyzing whole universe and then coming to the conclusion how Krishna is the source of all sources. Therefore, this mere renunciation is very, very difficult. Diya Mataji, can you read translation of the 6th verse?
Merely renouncing all activities yet not engaging the devotional service of the Lord cannot make one happy. But a thoughtful person engaged in devotional service can achieve the supreme without delay.
So that is the difference between a Mayavadi sannyasi. Mayavadi sannyasi means he will do a lot of analysis. He may study a lot of scriptures, but he does not come to the conclusion of devotional service. And there is a Vaishnava sannyasi. Vaishnava sannyasi means he may be externally a grihastha. He may be externally a kshatriya. Is Arjun not a sannyasi? He is a sannyasi. But his understanding, his consciousness is pure. Externally, he may be engaged in the work, yoga yukta, but he is completely renounced. So now let us do a simple reading of the 6th verse of 5.6. I can also share on the screen. And I request you to find out difference between a Mayavadi sannyasi and a Vaishnava sannyasi. So you can read the purport of the 6th verse and note down points. What are the difference between Mayavadi sannyasi and a Vaishnava sannyasi? Those who complete, please raise your hands so that you can share one point. And this is very important understanding we need to carry in our devotional service, because many times we get carried away when we see big renunciate person who is externally very renounced and detached. But we have to have a proper understanding of this Karma Yoga. Yes, Varat Krishna Prabhu, please unmute.
So we see here that the Mayavadi, they study the Sankhya philosophy, while Vaishnava sannyasis are engaged in the study of Bhagavatam philosophy. I think here the philosophy itself, which affords the proper commentary of the Vedanta Sutra. So this is one of the main you can say, that they go so much in details, but they miss which Bhagavatam gives us about devotional service.
Right. What we will do, we will first read we'll allow everyone to read, and then devotees can raise their hands and share one point. Okay. So we have to study 6th verse, 5.6. I've also projected it on the screen. So you have to read the purport and translation of this verse. And once you read, please write down the points in short. What a difference between a Mayavadi sannyasi and Vaishnava sannyasi. And as you complete the purport, please raise your hand. So then I can request one by one. You can share one point. Okay. Hare Krishna. So let's start with Shri Radha Kripa Katakshi Mataji. Please share your point.
Vaishnav sannyasis, they perform so many activities as devotional service to the Lord. But Mayavadi sannyasis, they are engaged in speculation of the Vedanta, but they still cannot relish devotional service to the Lord.
Yeah. So there is no practical service in Mayavad sannyasis. whereas devotees are always active in serving the Supreme Lord. Thank you, Mataji. Anupama Mataji.
Prabhuji, the Vaishnav sannyasis are always engaged in the devotional service and they always remain happy with the transcendental duties which they perform because they know that they will ultimately reach to the kingdom of God. And the Mayavadi sannyasis sometimes fall down and from the path of self realization and they remain in the cycle of birth and death.
Yeah, so they are not satisfied, therefore they
Yeah.
fall down. But devotees, they are very blissful in the course of their devotional service. Yeah, thank you so much, Anupama Mataji. Yes, Usha Mataji.
Yes, Prabhuji. For a Mayavadi sannyasi, for me, less and anger will always force him to engage in improper activities. He will be more attached to this material world. And whereas for a Vaishnav sannyasis, will always be fully engaged in devotional service in order to achieve the ultimate goal of life. He will always be serving Lord Krishna, always engage in devotional service.
Yeah. So he will not have any time for attending to his anarthas in heart. He'll be serving in the temple, he'll have multiple engagements. So he will have no time to give to lust, greed, anger, etc. Yes, Yashodanandan Prabhu.
Yeah. The students of the Bhagavata schools are engaged in the devotional service of the Lord according to the Pancharatriki regulations, and therefore the Vaishnava sannyasi have multiple engagements in the transcendental service of the Lord. The Vaishnava sannyasis have nothing to do with material activities, and yet they perform various activities in the devotional service to the Lord. But the Mayavadi sannyasis engaged in the studies of Sankhya and Vedanta and speculation cannot relish the transcendental service of the Lord.
Yeah, we discussed this point, that how Vedantis, the dry speculators, they don't have practical service to the Lord, so they can't have that experience of bliss. Yeah. Rasamrit Prabhu.
Krishna Prabhuji, Pranam Deshwarata. So Mayavadi sannyasis use their own comets, whereas Vaishnava sannyasi have multiple engagement in the transcendental service of the Lord.
Yeah. So yeah, the same point. Actually, this repeating. So Devi Mataji, you have some other point?
Yes, Prabhuji, Hare Krishna. Yeah, the Mayavadi sannyasis, they have dry speculations and they have impersonal interpretations by other shamans. And then also they fall down because they have no practical service.
Yeah.
Whereas Vaishnava sannyasis, their way to back the Godhead is guaranteed.
Yeah. So there is a risk factor also, like the Mayavad sannyasis, they can fall down anytime. But Krishna Prabhupada is telling Vaishnava sannyasis, they have guarantee of ultimate entrance into the kingdom of God. So they are sure to go back home, back to Godhead. So these are some differences you can see on the screen. The first point was already shared by Varat Krishna Prabhu, that how Vaishnava sannyasis are engaged in the study of the Bhagavatam philosophy, whereas Mayava sannyasis are very keen to study Sankhya philosophy. Now, why this discussion is here? Because if you study the verse, we already had discussion that Sankhya, analytical understanding, is very indirect way of coming to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. This analytical science. Whereas Bhagavatam is very, very direct. Bhagavatam directly starts with Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. That Bhagavate Vasudevaya, let us surrender to the Supreme Lord who is all pervading. And you can connect that verse to Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says, Vasudevam sarvamiti sa mahatmana sudurlabha. So after many, many lifetimes, these Sankhya philosophers may come to the understanding that Vasudeva is everything. Krishna is the source of everything. Whereas Bhagavatam starts with that understanding. So Vaishnava sannyasis have a proper understanding of the Vedas, the Vedanta Sutra, the Sankhya. And what they do by that, they engage in the service of the Lord. And when they engage in the service of the Lord, they are always blissful. Whereas the analytical science, the analysis of the material world is very tedious process, very difficult process. And by this dry speculation, they don't feel that kind of bliss as devotees are feeling in the service of the Lord. And while being happy within this life, they serve Krishna happily in bliss, and after giving up this body, they go to the spiritual world. Whereas Mayavadi sannyasis, their life is difficult, the process is difficult, and they're not guaranteed also to go to the spiritual nature. They may fall down. So why to go to that indirect and insecure method? So therefore, Vaishnava sannyasis are better situated in spiritual science than Mayavadi sannyasis. Whereas Mayavadi sannyasis, they take many, many births to come to the level of Krishna consciousness. Yes, Sachi Maharani Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. In the purport, it is written when Mayavadi takes shelter of Bhagavatam, it becomes troublesome for them. So can you explain how?
Yeah. Because you see, their whole understanding is that Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot have any form. See, they are so frustrated with the material life that they think that anywhere there is form, anywhere there are relationships, anywhere there are dealings between two people, there will be trouble. And when they read Bhagavatam, Bhagavatam is full of Lord's exchange with his devotees. Lord is in the personal feature in Bhagavatam. So therefore, they cannot take the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam. They can't digest the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam. Therefore, it is so troublesome to them. Like we studied this before also. Like if you have a child in say grade 2 and he's studying basic mathematics, 2 plus 2, 4, 5 minus 3, 2. And if he comes across a book of 10th standard where there's sine theta, cos theta, tan theta, trigonometry, then what he will think? How this English came in mathematics? English cannot come in maths. This misprint. So he cannot digest that. He'll be in more trouble. That way, Mayavad Sannyasi, their understanding is very, very basic, very, very primitive. So when they come to the level of Bhagavatam, they read Bhagavatam, they cannot digest that subject matter. Therefore, it is very troublesome for them. Okay?
Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji.
So now Krishna is further explaining that part, that one who is knowledge of this karma yoga, how he is unattached to the results of his activities, how he can free himself from the bondage just by performing this karma yoga. He'll perform his activities, but he'll perform his activities without attachment. Therefore, this particular Nishkam karma is being glorified by Supreme Personality of Godhead in the following verses. Let us see. Yeah. Keshav Priya Mataji, would you like to read? Translation for 7th verse. You can read from Bhagavad Gita 5.7.
Hare Krishna. One who works in devotion, who is a pure soul, and who controls his mind and senses, is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him. Though always working, such a man is never entangled.
So now Krishna is telling the characteristics of a karma yogi, one who is engaged in karma yoga. Yoga yukto. One yukta means to be engaged. So one who is engaged in this yoga, in this karma yoga, he is Vishuddhatma. Vishuddha. Shuddha means pure. Vishuddha means completely pure. So that soul is completely pure. And that pure soul, how is pure? Vijitatma Jitendriyaha. Because he has control over mind and senses. See, main contamination comes when mind and senses come in contact with the material sense objects. When a person has a complete control over mind and senses, there is no contamination. And because there is no contamination, there are no anarthas in the heart. What are the contamination for a living soul? Contamination for living soul is lust, greed, anger, pride, illusion, and envy. The worst is envy. When lust is not fulfilled, it turns into anger. When you try to feed the lust, it inflates greed. So suppose you are feeding the lust, then greed develops to feed more and more. And if lust is unfulfilled, then anger develops. And these lead to illusion. This lead to further attachment to the sense objects. This lead to pride. Pride of being controller, pride of being enjoyer. And then there can't be two enjoyers. Like there is a saying in Hindi, एक जंगल में दो शेर नहीं रह सकते. There can't be two lions in the same jungle. So when everybody is thinking he is the enjoyer of this world, then there is naturally envy. There is clash. Because only enjoyer is Krishna, there can be multiple servants. But imagine everybody thinks that I am the enjoyer, I am the center of this world. Then there is bound to have the clashes. And therefore there is so much envy in the world. But this karma yogi, because he is not concerned about the results of his activities, he just wants to please Krishna. He doesn't have any lust. When there is no lust, there is no greed and anger. When there is no greed and anger, there is no pride and illusion. When there is no pride, there is no envy. And when there is no envy, such a soul is Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma. He is dear to everyone and everyone is dear to him. Such a devotee, such a karma yogi has no enemies. He is Ajata Shatru. Therefore, when we glorify the Shad Goswamis, we sing Shad Goswami Ashtakam. There is a part in that. Dhira Dhira Jana Priya Priya Karo. The 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan are glorified by Srinivasa Acharya, and he is telling Dhira Dhira Jana Priya, that pure devotee of Lord like 6 Goswamis are dear to Dhira and Adhira, both. They are dear to devotees as well as non-devotees. Like Narad Muni. Narad Muni can go to demigods. Narad Muni would also go to demons. Like you remember in Krishna Leela, when Kansa gave up, this first child of Vasudev. Vasudev brought the first child to Kansa, and Kansa told, you can take it back. Don't worry. I have a problem with the 8th child, not the first child. So Vasudev takes him back. And then who comes? Narad Muni comes. And Narad Muni starts to give advice to Kansa that, these demigods are so intelligent. How they will count, you don't know. They will count from front to back or back to front. First can be 8th. So you never know. You can't trust Vasudev. So just kill the child. So look, the point here is, Kansa could believe Narad, who was actually spiritual master of the demigods. But Kansa could believe on him. Similarly, Hiranyakashipu, when Hiranyakashipu was, terrorizing the whole universe, Narad Muni would go in the court of Hiranyakashipu without any fear. So these are pure devotees. Dhira Dhira Jana Priya. They don't have any fear. Whole world loves them and they love the whole world. They are Ajata Shatru. Ajata Shatru means one whose enemy is never born. That is devotee. They cannot think any living entity separate from Krishna. That is devotee. That is Karma Yogi. Karma Yogi doesn't see any activity separate from Krishna, what to speak about living entities. So he always sees all living entities connected to Krishna. Just like a big tree, the root of the tree is Krishna, and there are trunk, there is branches, there are leaves, there are fruits, there are flowers. And although he's serving Krishna by pouring water on the root of the tree, but he also understands that all these living entities are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. So he's servant to all. And therefore, he is very dear. Now the question may be asked, okay, such a devotee is servant to all, is dear to all, then why Krishna is inspiring Arjun to kill? Arjun is going to kill others. How is that? So he should love everybody according to this verse. Loving doesn't mean killing. So how he is killing? Prabhupada explaining in the purport. Prabhupada is telling that Arjun's killing is justified because of two reasons. First is, he is not killing the soul. He is not harming the soul. But actually, he is doing the needful to rectify the soul. Suppose there is a patient in the emergency in the hospital, and he has wounds all over his body from an accident. What is that doctor supposed to do? Doctor will just cut off his clothes and start treating him. At that particular moment, maybe that person is wearing very costly clothes. But doctor will not worry about the clothes. Doctor will just cut off the clothes and save the patient. Because doctor knows saving body is more important than saving clothes. In the same way, saving the soul is more important than saving the body. Now all these opponents of Pandavas standing with Duryodhan were on the side of irreligion. And if they act more on irreligion, they are procuring more and more sinful reactions. So their soul will suffer more. To save them, Arjuna's killing was justified. And second reason is more important. Arjuna was simply carrying out the instructions of Krishna. When Krishna wants them to be killed, that is best for them. Just like father knows what is best for the children. Like suppose a student has exam the next day and he is demanding for a video game. What father supposed to do? He's not supposed to give him video game that day. He can give him later, but not that day. Because that day he is supposed to study. So Krishna is not allowing these Duryodhana and party to live because they are engaged in sinful activities. And therefore, Arjuna's carrying out the instruction of Krishna and killing is also service to them. The devotee is servant to all, is dear to all, because he is serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is watering the root. And as he is watering the root of the tree, everyone will be nourished. And that person is not bound by the activities of this world. Now, Sridhar Swami, who was the commentator, very famous commentator in our Acharya line, he asked the question, even though performing a work, how he is not touched, entangled? This is explained in the following two verses, 8 and 9. Sachi Maharani Mataji, would you like to read translation of 8 and 9?
Person in the divine consciousness, although engaged in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving, about, sleeping, and breathing, always knows within himself that he actually does nothing at all. Because while speaking, evacuating, receiving, or opening or closing his eyes, he always knows that only the material senses are engaged with their objects and that he is aloof from them.
So a person in Krishna consciousness has nothing to do with any work, whatever he is doing, senses, his activities. Actually, he is not doing anything because he is not attached to the results of it. He is not an independent doer. He is simply doing as an service to the Supreme Lord. Other doers who are actually doing for sense gratification, they are not in the same category. They are responsible for their actions. But a karma yogi is not the real doer of his action. Actually, he thinks Krishna is the real doer, and he simply acts for the sake of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, such person is not affected by all these activities. Here so many activities of the knowledge acquiring senses and working senses has been described, like seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating. These are the activities of the knowledge acquiring senses. And then moving, sleeping, breathing, doing evacuating, speaking, closing eyes. These are all like working senses. So these both activities are not affecting a karma yogi, because although he is doing activity, but actually in essence he is not doing anything, because he is simply acting on the sake of the Supreme Personality of God. Now Krishna further explains this concept in the following 7 verses. What we will do, we'll study them in teams so that we don't skip any part of the purport. I will divide the classroom into different rooms, and what you're supposed to do is as follows. Please demonstrate, please present how one gradually becomes purified by performing Vedic yajnas. How a karma yogi gets purified by practice of his karma yoga, which is also called as yajna. This is our presentation, aim of the presentation. As before we have done many times, please use the Sanskrit words and phrases from the verses which are relevant, and you can take examples. Please use sufficient examples so that you can present your topic more in detail. You can use examples from the scriptures. You can take examples from the contemporary world. You can take analogies from Prabhupada's purport and make your presentation very nice. Yes, Saurabh Prabhu, you have a question?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, you have said that how this, you have used the word karma yoga. So,
yes.
Is it similar to Vedic yajna as you were saying? Did you said that? I'm just confused.
Can you repeat? Your voice was breaking.
I'm saying, Prabhu, you said how the person becomes purified by performing Vedic yajnas,
Yes.
which is equal to karma yoga. Is that
Yes.
what you're saying?
Yeah, because in last chapter also we have seen how this karma yoga means engaging our activities in the service of the Lord, and that is the purpose of the yajnas. Yajnas means when we do our actions in the with the aim of satisfying the Supreme Lord. So both are actually equal in that spirit. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, Bharat Krishna Prabhu, please unmute.
Can you put the screen again? The screen you had before that?
Yeah.
See, I think you say identify form chapter 3.
Sorry, this is chapter 5. Sorry, this is a
From,
mistake.
no? It is
Yeah.
from.
Chapter
From
5.
chapter 5.
Yes. Yes.
From also. Identify from.
Yeah, identify from chapter 5.
Okay,
Sorry.
fine, yeah. Okay, no problem.
So these are the verses which we need to work on, 10 to 16. And I'm just dividing the whole class into 6 groups. So in each group, you may get 4 devotees, 4 to 5, 5 in some groups. And please remember your groups. You can study together and make one speaker from each group, as we do every time. Give chance to devotees who have not spoken as yet. And you all team members can give points to your speaker and they can present. So today we will just divide the room and we study and share the points. Tomorrow when we come back, we start with the presentations. After each presentation, I will summarize it with the points from Srila Prabhupada's purport, and then we go to the next group. So 10th, first group will be doing verse 10, 5.10. Second group 5.11. Third group 5.12. Fourth group 13 and 14. Fifth group 15 and sixth group 16. So you can take screenshot of this slide so you remember which group is supposed to do which part. Okay, so I am dividing the class. Each group, please select a speaker first, study among yourself and share the points, not just from the purports, but by your own study in ISKCON all these years. You can give different examples from different scriptures supporting the statements of your presentation. You can also use the contemporary examples and analogies to make the subject matter more clear and understandable. Okay, so I'm creating the rooms. You can study and make the presentation. We have half an hour more. And then tomorrow when we come back, then we start with the presentations. Okay. Hare Krishna. So you can join your rooms.